Welcome to a brand new lesson where you're going to learn 5 basic composition tips. These are things that you should be putting into practice whenever you go out and take portraits. And these 5 tips will just help you get started if you feel like you're not confident as a portrait photographer. Tip number 1 is to get closer, whether you're using a more telephoto zoom lens or just a telephoto prime lens, or you actually move closer to the subject. Getting closer to the subject typically allows you to get better headshots and portraits. You might not feel that comfortable with the subject, and a lot of amateur portrait photographers like to step back and have a lot of space in the photo. And some of those photos can look creative when the subject isn't filling the frame, but typically with headshots or portraits that you're using for professional corporate photos, social media profile images, you want to fill that frame with your beautiful face or the beautiful face of whoever you are photographing. Tip number 2 is to keep the eyes in the upper third of the frame. Now this can be done in post-production by cropping in, but it's also something you should just pay attention to while you're out there shooting. If you break down the photo into thirds with invisible lines on the bottom and top third, you want those eyes to be in the upper third or in at least on the upper third line. This just feels more natural. Whether you're shooting horizontally or vertically, it's going to make the photo feel and look more natural. You don't want to have a lot of headroom above the head, and while sometimes it's okay to crop the top of the head, I'd rather not do that while shooting and only do that in post, just in case you want to have that room above the head. Tip number 3 is to have a distraction-free background. Now this can be done by using and choosing a background that doesn't have a lot going on, or it can be done by placing your subject further away from the background so that the background gets out of focus. The previous images showed people out in nature, and nature in the background is just sort of a blur of colors. Here in this photo, we have this brick background, and as long as the background is out of focus and you have a more shallow depth of field, it's going to look all right. But the more distraction-free and clean it is it's typically going to be better. You don't want the background to compete for attention with the subject. Tip number 4 is more about posing your subject, but it's also has to do with how you compose the image. No one wants a double chin, and one way to get rid of that double chin quickly is by having your subject stick their chin out and then tuck it back down slightly. You can see in this photo specifically that the lady, John, had her lift her chin up just a bit. It might feel a little bit awkward at first, but let them know that having their face really stick out from their neck and their shoulders, it really is going to make a better portrait because their face should be the sole focus of the portrait, not their shoulders or neck or whatever they're wearing. Tip number 5 is another one for positioning your subject. Have them turn their body both to the right or left. It really depends on what they like. You can try both with the same subject. Some people like the way that their hair looks when they're facing a certain way, so you want to be aware of that as well. But when you're facing the camera directly on, the body looks a little bit wider. And the old saying that the camera adds 10 pounds, sometimes it looks true when your body is directly square with the camera. So a good way to have them look more natural, the way that they really are, is to have them turn their body just slight angle between 30 and 45 degrees away from the camera. Thank you so much for watching. I hope these quick tips help you when you go out and shoot your next portraits. Have a great day, and we'll see you in the next lesson.